This book review is going to be about The Library Book by Susan Orlean. So let's dig in. So the library book started because Susan found out about a fire in the what is it? Los Angeles? Yeah, Los Angeles library, and it burned 400,000 books and damaged 750,000 more. So while this started talking about that event, that tragic event that a lot of people didn't hear about because it happened the same day as Chernobyl in 1986. Unless you were in the literary world, unless you were in Los Angeles, then you probably didn't hear much about it. It started about that, but it is a much bigger book than that. It does investigate the fire. It tries. It was planned to draw some conclusions, but there's not really a good conclusion about who did it. And it's a lot more than that. It's an ode really to the love of books and the ways that libraries have morphed. Specifically the Los Angeles library, but libraries in general have morphed and how they have become significantly more than they started out as, right? Library, at least the Los Angeles library, started as as a library that was, it cost something. It cost whatever, a couple dollars a year. So not a lot, but in the 1800s, that was still a lot of money for people. So a fairly exclusive club into the only place that you'll encounter homeless people, and you can't walk to the other side of the street. That's one of the key quotes that I really took out of this. That libraries have become this place, this melting pot of society's problems and amplification of them for many people, because it's easy for me to just avoid homeless people because I just ignore them. But it's harder to ignore them in the library because they're sitting there. They are doing whatever they're doing, right? Reading a book, looking at the internet. It's a free place for internet. And then for under 30s, it is a free office instead of a paid co-working space, because under 30s are less likely to have a job that has an office that comes with it. They're more likely to have a remote work or, freelance style job where they need a free office, where they need an office and they need good internet. And libraries have become that as well, a bit of a community center and a bit of a book lending center, and a spot where you can just go as long as you follow a few rules of decorum, and you can hang out as long as you want and no one will bug you about it. One of the really great parts about it in that respect was how everything from like the children's librarian to the person who ran the history department and like looked at old maps to the heads of security and the security guards really cared for all of the patrons, even the ones that did create problems. Were known to create some problems. They really cared for them, and they viewed themselves as a place that provided a good service for them, a place that allowed them to, in Los Angeles not so much, but allowed them to be out from the elements, and allowed them to be there and not have issues, and not be chased away. A place where they could exist without always worried about being chased away. And they all really took that seriously, and they felt hard. They had a really big heart for it, right? They looked at how they could provide extra services, how you could, one-stop shop. You can sign up for all the services in town on, this day in the library. And they really looked deep at that. And they talked in the teen department about, sex, drugs, other stuff like that, social media, and managing it so that you can, just to provide a service for the community. And even more than that, it's an ode to the love of books, right? There's a great quote, and I'm going to bring this up and read it to you. A great quote that really spoke to me about just the love of libraries. Oh, I didn't actually write it in the review, so we'll grab it out of the book because I made a note in the book with a tab. Here it is. First one. First note. So it's about the destruction of a book, and because she wanted to burn a book, just to see it happen, to see what it was like as she looked at it, as she wrote this book. So let's read it. It's a fairly long quote, but I'll read it to you. Many times I have stood over a trash can holding a book with a torn cover and broken binding, and I have hovered there dangling the book, and finally I have let the trash can lid snap shut, and I have walked away with the goddamn book, a battered, dog-eared, wounded soldier that has been spared to live another day. The only thing that comes close to this feeling is what I experienced when I try to throw out a plant. Even if it is the baldest, most aphid-ridden, crooked-stemmed plant in the world. The sensation of dropping a living thing into the trash is what makes me queasy. To have that same feeling about a book might seem strange, but this is why I have come to believe that books have souls. Why else would I be so reluctant to throw one away? It doesn't matter that I know I'm throwing away a bound, printed block of paper that is easily reproduced. It doesn't feel like that. A book feels like a thing alive in this moment, and also alive on a continuum, from the moment the thoughts about it first percolated in the writer's mind to the moment it sprang off the printing press. A lifeline that continues as someone sits with it and marvels over it, and it continues on. Time after time after time. Once words and thoughts are poured into them, books are no longer just paper and ink and glue. They take on a kind of human vitality. The poet Milton called this quality in books, the potency of life. I wasn't sure I had it in me to be a killer. That was one of the quotes that she really stuck out to me about what books mean to me as well, and how they, even so, there's Stephen Lawhead was one of the first books I really remember rereading his Arthur book out of his Pendragon trilogy when I got it, but cycle now because there's 5 books suddenly. Yeah, that was just like a good, right, and that took on a life. I don't own it currently, but I look around and I look for a good copy of it because it has sentimental, it has a soul. It reminds me of my childhood, and there's something to that books bring to that. One of the other good ones is, I'll just look it up in the book because I've got 4 pinned quotes, a little quick to find, about the problems that you see in the library and society. So here it is again. Every problem that society has, the library has too, because the boundary between society and the library is porous. Nothing good is kept out of the library, and nothing bad. Often at the library, society's problems are magnified. Homelessness and drug use and mental illness are all problems you see in every public place in Los Angeles. One difference is that if you see a mentally ill person on the street, you can cross to the other side. In a library, you share a smaller and more intimate space. The communal nature of a library is the very essence of the library, in the shared desks and the shared books and the shared restrooms. So another good quote that she had there. And then she had a good one. I'm not going to read this whole quote. She had another interesting one, which is a counterpoint to iGen, which I'm not sure when I'm going to publish this, so it might be coming out. If it's already out, then I will link to it. If it's not, then it's coming up. Where she talks about, while libraries are old-fashioned, they are becoming more popular with under 30s, in part because they realize that some of the knowledge in books is not knowledge we have elsewhere. I actually talked about that in Mr. Penumbra's 24-hour bookstore. They call it the OK and TK. I don't remember their exact terms, but there's books that just haven't been digitized yet, or knowledge in heads that hasn't been captured yet. Is the idea there. And I will be reviewing Mr. Penumbra's 24-hour bookstore. I'm recording it after this, actually, or at some point in the next little bit. She also talks about, I already talked about this, but the free spaces. Now that actually runs counter to iGen, where iGen said that younger people don't use books, because they just think that everything's online. Although it's possible that iGen was talking about a generation before, so a younger generation than they were talking about in this book. Yeah, ultimately it's really good. As far as a conclusion on, did the Harry Peak set the fire? The answer is, I don't know. She doesn't know. There's just no way to know at this point. They felt they had a lot of evidence that it was him. There's a lot of descriptions of a guy that sounds like him. He has 42 alibis. He changes his story all the time, and he's very enigmatic. And he's dead now. He died, of AIDS in the HIV epidemics we had. But there's no conclusion. My feeling from all the descriptions that it was him. She says, I don't know. At times I thought it was him, and then I was like, there's no way it could be him at other times. So there's no conclusion that way. But ultimately, if you it's not a true crime thing, but if you want to read the story and read about the fire and how the city pulled together to help recover from the fire, and a little bit of crime stuff, and the meaning and the ways that libraries and books, what they mean to us and what they become in our society, then it's a good book. So I would recommend it on that point. If you liked the review, then give me a thumbs up. If you loved it, subscribe, but never hit the bell. Go read a book instead. Don't wait for notification. Just schedule some time to watch videos and then watch me then. Have a good one.